Welcome to Doctors Unbound, your show devoted to doctors who are, well, unbound by physician stereotypes. Get a behind-the-scenes look at doctors that are breaking the mold and breaking into the worlds of technology, writing, investing, politics, just to name a few. This is Doctors Unbound, where you'll hear from experts with the insights to help you go to the next level. Let's get this show started. Here is your host, Dr. Dave Draginas.
This is episode 12 of the Doctors Unbound podcast. I am your host, Dr. Ron Burgundy, inviting you to stay classy. Just playing. I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. I hope it was as great for you and your family as it was for me. I recently read a quote that really made an impression on me, and I do want to share that quote with you. And here it is. In order to finish first, you must first finish. So just a little bit of inspiration here for you. 2017 is winding down. Let's finish out 2017 strong and with momentum going into 2018. I've got another awesome guest for you today. Some takeaways from this interview include how mentorship helped him have a better experience when he went running with the bulls, the serendipity of not getting into medical school on his first try, the systems and technology that make him much more efficient, and his financial challenge to physicians. Don't miss the knowledge bombs in this episode with Dr. Amir Baluch. Welcome to another episode of the Doctors Unbound podcast. Today, I've got Dr. Amir Baluch. He's a board-certified physician, a prolific real estate investor, and one of the hardest working people I know. But he doesn't just work hard, he also works smart, and we're going to get into a lot of that today in this episode. Dr. Baluch, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you here. We're going to start off the interview by getting to know you a little bit better. So my first question is, tell us a little bit about what a typical morning routine is like for you.
Well, as an anesthesiologist, it's always going to start early. My morning usually starts around about 5:30 in the morning. I'll get up, do some cardio. I'll answer a couple emails and sometimes get on Skype and talk to my marketing team online, which most of them are from India. And then as I'm driving to work, I almost always have a podcast going in my car and just constantly trying to learn while I'm driving.
Awesome. I love that you're getting your exercise in early. And why is your marketing team in India? Is that a kind of a geographic arbitrage kind of play? Is it the price much lower down there?
Yeah, for certain things, and that's just really one of the only times I can get a hold of them, and then I kind of let them know, hey, this is what I want done, and they touch base with me on what they did overnight while I was sleeping, so it's just a good time to touch base without any interruptions.
Sounds like that keeps things moving efficiently too.
Right.
Awesome. Now, how about when you have some time to enjoy a nice meal, some food or drink, what might that look like for you?
Well, you know, my vegetarian friends aren't going to like hearing this, but I'm really just. Yeah, I know plant-based diet is pretty hot right now, but I'm not really into that. I like a good steak. And in Texas, we got a lot of good places. And my favorite place is probably Al Bernays. They have the best steak that I've ever had is their bone-in ribeye cowboy cut, medium or medium rare. That's probably the best steak I've had in my life.
And that's here in Dallas?
That's here in Dallas, yeah.
So free plug for Al Bernays right there. And then how about something maybe a little bit unique or quirky about you that few people know about?
Let's see, something quirky that won't freak too many people out. Well, you know, I end up working pretty late at night, so, you know, when it's time to go to sleep, everybody usually has some type of routine. after I brush my teeth, I really just lay on top of all the covers in my bed. I don't need a pillow or anything. I just lay down on the bed and whatever clothes I'm wearing, and I go to sleep and set my alarm, and I'm done. And I pretty much wake up. Whenever I wake up, I'm usually in the same position that I went to sleep in. So
That's pretty funny. I think doctors who often have to figure out how to sleep in very maybe tight spaces, maybe with very little time to sleep, have to figure something out to be really efficient.
right.
Cool. All right, we're gonna move on here into some of the more interesting things here related to what you do besides being a physician. So you're, a well-compensated physician as an anesthesiologist. What inspired you to go into real estate?
Well, nothing is for certain. No cash flow streams can last forever, and you never know what's going to happen in the future. So when I was applying to medical school, I figured, hey, I'll just go to med school. I'll be like my dad, who was a doctor, and I started applying, and I got a couple interviews, and I thought, okay, well, where's my acceptance letter? And after everybody got accepted, I found out I didn't get in, and everybody was surprised. I was surprised, and it just kind of made me feel uncomfortable, thinking that I thought for sure I was going to get in. So at that point, I was like, well, if I can't get into medical school, I need to start looking at something else. I was looking for anything out there. I was a personal trainer. I was a librarian. I was an EMT. I did all this great stuff. And then I reapplied and got in. But, while I had that 1 to 2 year hiatus, I started researching, how do other people build wealth? And I came across an interesting fact that 80% of multimillionaires made a majority of their wealth through investing in real estate. So a little light went off, and that's when I started. I was about 21 years old, and I bought some courses from some infomercial that I saw at 1 a.m. in the morning, I think I even got the cassette tape version, or the CDs. It was that long ago.
That's really old school.
Yeah, really old school. So I started learning that way, just from whatever was marketed on TV, and then trying to get some mentors along the way. And that's how it all started.
Wow, pretty cool. Well, I love the fact that, number one, you didn't give up on your dream of going to med school. You had a little bit of a setback there, which happens to a lot of physicians, but you had that grit and determination. And number two, you were productive with that time, and maybe in some ways, as we'll soon find out, it was a blessing in disguise, in that it gave you the time to kind of figure out this interest in real estate and really kind of delve into it.
Yeah, it ended up being a good thing. It definitely forced me to get a perspective on life and look at what everybody else is doing.
Gotcha. And now I know you're a very busy person, working full-time as an anesthesiologist and also having your real estate investments. How do you utilize systems and technology to be able to stay on top of your game?
Well, that's a good question. There's actually so much software out there these days that people can take advantage of just to be organized and get rid of time wasters. So 2 or 3 things that I like to do. For sure, you'd have to have a to-do list. There's some study by Yale that showed that the 3% of people that actually had a to-do list outperformed the other 97% combined.
Wow.
This from Yale graduates. So that's something I learned back when I was 21 also. So ever since then, I had a list of things to do, and it forces you to manage your time to get that list, to get through that list. Then I have, I use a calendar app. A lot of other people use it too, but it's so quick to set appointments with a calendar, and you can actually visualize the time. It's hard to visualize time unless you have a calendar, and you can easily waste a couple hours and do nothing productive. And you'll feel like you don't have any time, but really you do. And when you look at a calendar, you'll see how much time you actually have. And when you use that time, I just started using this recently in the last year. It's called the Pomodoro app. It's actually a timer. So you actually set a task on there, and you have like a 25-minute sprint. So you work for 25 minutes on just one thing or two things, and then you take a 5-minute break, and then you go another 25 minutes then you do a 10-minute break, and you kind of adjust the time. But there's something called Murphy's Law where they say whatever task you have will occupy the time that you give it. So if you give yourself all, like, back in college when we were writing essays, if you sit on it all day, it's going to take you all day to do it. But if you cram late at night and you only got 2 hours, guess what? You get the same essay done in 2 hours. So that's just how it is. So I think timing yourself and not allowing you to be a victim of Murphy's Law is key too. And that Pomodoro app has helped me out this last year.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard a lot of high performers swear by the Pomodoro technique, and like you said, you kind of have to play with it a little bit to see what's most efficient for you. But my understanding is that people will typically take somewhere between maybe 40 and 50 minutes as their time period to achieve whatever task, and then take a break maybe in the 10-minute range, and then they can go ahead and do another Pomodoro. And I've heard some people say that first thing in the morning, let's say if they're writing a book or whatever it is, they'll set 2 or 3 Pomodoros to do in a row, and once they've accomplished that, they feel like they've gotten more done than many people do in their entire day.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing all those tips. I think all of those are very valuable for people who want to be efficient and kind of get a step up in their time efficiency. So we talked a little bit about book writing. You wrote a book called Make It, Keep It. Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah, so Make It, Keep It was kind of a compilation of financial wisdom that I learned from people over the last 15 years. And the reason I wrote this book is I see so many physicians out there that are investing in things that don't make sense. They don't know how to do due diligence. They don't plan out their finances correctly. They just have questions that sometimes they don't even want to ask the questions. They end up learning, unfortunately, by experience. And the story of one doctor I always share with people was internal medicine doctor, doing really well, making well into the 7 figures actually, which is really good for a primary care doctor.
Yeah, that's pretty good for anybody, especially primary care.
Right. Yeah. So he was doing really well. And then the better you do, the more people come after your money and say, hey, invest in this, invest in that. And he was trading options. He invested in land in Las Vegas without even looking at it, and investing into restaurants and these weird gimmicky looking things, and trusting the wrong people. And before you know it, he was so over leveraged. And, when projects don't go well, you still owe all that money you borrowed. He ended up getting all of his wages garnished and couldn't even operate his practice, and had to declare bankruptcy. And that was pretty much the end of his career. And that story of that doctor is actually the story of my dad. When I was about 20, 21, that's when all that happened to him. So,
oh, wow.
So after that happened, I became really, apprehensive about finances, and I kind of went in the opposite direction, almost like overly doing due diligence on any type of investments. And I became a voracious reader on all topics relating to financing and investing. And, I was acquiring mentors that already made it and kind of learning from the streets that way. And I put a lot of that knowledge that I learned in that book. And then, through Baluch Bulletin, my newsletter, I go into some more detail about specific topics, like, if somebody wants to save on taxes or get stronger asset protection or something like that, we go into more detail there.
Very cool. And just to follow up a little bit on part of that answer, because you've mentioned it twice now, any tips for the people listening out there who are interested in finding a mentor for whatever it is that they're interested in learning about? How do you approach that so that you're delivering some kind of value to your mentor as well?
Well, what I realized, a lot of people that have actually become successful, they actually enjoy helping people. So just if you're asking them for some help, as long as you're not taking up too much of their time, or you show some appreciation of their time, they're usually very happy to help you and point you in the right direction. So that's one thing that I found. Or if there is some way you can help them achieve what they want, that's another plus too. It just kind of depends on what industry you're in. And I've even found out, with some business opportunities people had pitched to me, I was able to just go on LinkedIn and find national experts and just message them and say, hey, I know you wrote this book, or hey, I know you're in this position in this industry. I got a question about this deal. What do you think? Do you have 5 minutes? You could talk to me on the phone. And every single time they've answered my question and saved me a lot of headaches. So
that is really cool, and I think it's really an awesome thing about living in the time where we're at, where you can take a social platform like LinkedIn, or maybe it's Twitter or Facebook, and you can directly message this person. Whereas maybe 15 years ago, you'd have to try and find the phone number of this person, which would be very difficult to find. But now you can message them, and a lot of times, like you said, people who are very successful are looking to give back to the right people. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it works out pretty well.
Cool. The other thing that now that I think about it, I remember mentioned with mentors is, instead of reaching out to somebody and say, help me do X, if you can go to the mentor and say, hey, here's what I've done so far trying to achieve X. I don't know how to take it further. What would you suggest? I think that can also be a way to show that person that, hey, you're very serious, you're appreciative of their time and their experience, and that, you're somebody who's actually going to use that information that they give you.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And probably those mentors even can remember a time when they were in that person's place too, and didn't have a mentor. So they probably understand the pain that they're in.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay. One important concept in investing is to minimize risk. Can you give our listeners out there who are thinking of maybe real estate investing, or maybe other types of investing, ways that they might be able to minimize risk in their investments?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think a lot of people, when they look at an investment, they look at it wrong in the first place, and they don't look at the risk enough. So whenever people meet with me at our office, I just ask them, okay, I have a 10% return deal. I got a 20% return deal. Which one's the best one? And a lot of times I say the 20% return deal. But, you don't know what the underlying risk is. It's all about risk reward. So, the most important thing actually is to look at the risk in a deal and forget about the upside until you minimize the risk. One reason I like real estate is you can buy it at a discount, unlike a lot of stocks, which are just trading at whatever the current market value is. So if you buy at a discount, that's going to give you a little buffer. There's some collateral with real estate as well. So, the house or the apartment complex or whatever it is not going anywhere. It'll have some intrinsic value there. And one thing that's a little bit more difficult to do is negotiating on terms. And that varies deal by deal. I've put together some deals with developers where, I have them put their money where their mouth is. I'm like, look, if you guys don't perform, you guys are going to lose equity, and you got to give my investors minimum 10% return. And if you can't do that, you're going to keep on giving up your equity until they get that. So that's a way to, use some managers' equity as a buffer if there wasn't a buffer in the deal in the first place. And so many different examples. Sometimes you just have to be, creative.
I was just about to say that it seems like when you're negotiating some of these deals, there's quite a bit of creativity that can come into place. There isn't just a boilerplate way of doing a deal or doing a negotiation. There's terms, there's all these different pieces, interest rates, percentages of equity, etc. Where if you're a good negotiator, you can put together a deal that's favorable for everybody.
That's right. And the best way to learn that is actually just, I feel like it's just learned on the streets. You just gotta see a lot of deals and see how a lot of people negotiate.
And maybe that's where mentors come into place too, because if you get in with a good mentor, they can kind of, show you some of the deals that they're doing, and you can see how they approach it.
Right. And even just a little bit of that knowledge on how to negotiate can make or break an investment. That's really key.
Okay, very cool. So, kind of getting back to real estate, some people seem to be afraid of real estate investing, while others I've noticed out there just swear by it. So, what is it about real estate that you like, and what trends do you see in the real estate market here going forward?
Well, in a lot of books, they'll call real estate the trifecta, because not only do you get appreciation, You also get depreciation and tax benefits, and you can also get cash flow. So depending on what type of real estate deal you go into and depending on what your priorities are, you can always find something that matches that. So that's a really good thing about real estate. You can kind of tweak it based on your priorities with, tax deductions, creating equity, or creating passive cash flow. That's one of the strongest points of real estate. The other reason I like it is since we're talking about minimizing risk, there are really some amazing ways you could go in with virtually no risk. And there's nothing that doesn't have any risk to it except for life insurance products, but you can minimize it so much it ends up being almost a no-brainer to invest, and that's part of the reason I like it. Now, some people might not like it because maybe they got into a bad deal or they didn't understand what was going on, which a lot of times that's the case. But the trends are kind of tricky. Like, people think that it goes up and down just like the stock market, and it doesn't. And really, the market doesn't even matter that much because there's always a deal in almost any type of a market. Mm-hmm. But understanding the trends is really key too. So, like, for example, 2010 to 2014 was a great time to invest in commercial real estate, and then it became sexy. And now this year, actually, I've seen so many people asking to get into commercial real estate. I have 11 people right now wanting to buy directly, and it's actually the highest point in time. We're at the peak of the sales price for commercial real estate. People are getting in. And it's just, it's not a bad time. Doesn't mean there's not a good deal out there, but you're probably going to end up taking more risk for that same return you could have gotten 5 years ago. So doesn't mean not do it. You just got to be extra careful because of where we are in the real estate cycle. Whereas in the meantime, here in Dallas, where, I think Texas has 10 of the 15 fastest growing cities, and just the Dallas Metroplex area in the suburbs has 4 of the top 5 fastest growing cities.
Right.
So knowing that is a trend, development is probably going to be pretty hot. That affordable homes are going to be pretty hot. All these jobs that are coming in, what type of salaries are they paying people? What type of homes could they afford? Those are the homes that need to be created and developed. So just understanding some basic trends, it's not complicated to understand it, but you have to know what it is. And then you can make a move and get the highest return you can with the lowest amount of risk, which is, in my opinion, the best definition of a good deal.
Got it. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people that I've talked to about real estate, echo a lot of the stuff that you just mentioned here, and also like the aspect of it that they can kind of control more of it themselves versus, investing in a stock where they feel like, they don't really have any control, once they make the purchase as to what happens with that investment. Whereas, with real estate, if you can negotiate terms, et cetera, you've got a little bit more of an active role. So is that something that is attractive to you as well?
Yeah, I mean, having that control and being able to understand the deal better, I mean, it's just really great. And so many things you can negotiate on. I mean, we're usually buying properties 20 to 50% below market price, no matter what the market is in. And you're actually seeing, the Yale and Harvard endowment funds, which if you want to see some investing trends, you can see how they change their portfolio. Uh-huh. They've increased their real estate holdings by 10 to 15% over the last few years. So that lets you know that they're very, bearish on equity markets, S&P 500 and stocks, and they're more going into alternative investment with collateral. But you can actually invest one deal at a time, and instead of versus a REIT, which is kind of like throws money all over the place for the most part. You can invest one deal at a time and make smarter decisions and focus on one deal. Why does it make sense? And then, put down the appropriate amount of capital into that deal and then move on to the next one.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing all that knowledge about real estate. We're going to move on a little bit here. What is the one thing, the one action that you would like listeners to take today?
Let's see. Besides downloading my book on Amazon.
Well, we'll cover that here in just a bit.
Well, let's see. I think, most doctors I know that just have one source of income, and that's their medical practice. I would challenge them to look at least 2 or 3 other sources of income. And if they don't think that they can find any, then they could talk to me, because I have about 8 to 10 of them, and anybody could do any of these things that I'm doing. So you just got to go out there. Sometimes you use your medical license. Some people have a skill set that they just haven't exploited. They didn't even know that they could monetize it. So sometimes they just got to talk to people and brainstorm and identify some other sources of income. So that's one thing I would want the listeners to do.
Okay, very cool. And how about the one thing that you wish you had done differently in your career thus far?
Medical wise, I think everything was great. But for the real estate side, I wish I had gotten a mentor sooner, because even though I started in 2001, I didn't successfully transact a deal till like 07 or 08 when I was in residency. And the only reason I was able to do that is because I actually had a mentor that was already making millions of dollars in Dallas. And while I was in Miami finishing my residency, we would communicate back and forth. And we finally flipped our first condo while I was in residency and made about 17 grand. And I was like, wow, why didn't I get a mentor in the first place? So
the light bulb went on.
Right.
Okay. And how about what is one resource besides your own that you would recommend to our listeners?
One resource I like, it's actually kind of like a software program. It's called Feedly, Feedly. It's kind of like Google Alerts, where it will feed you information on certain topics. So if you wanted to type in real estate in the Feedly app, it's going to push all these articles about real estate to your phone, and you're constantly being updated on that industry. But they have multiple industries. You could do it for whatever healthcare industry you're in, or you could do it for even cooking. I mean, there's multiple things that you could do with that. But I mean, just getting a constant flow of up-to-date information with that app is really good.
And that's just a standalone app, Feedly?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to check that out, because I kind of use Twitter for that as one of the functions, but I haven't used Feedly yet. I will definitely have to check it out.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
Awesome. And we'll end with a kind of a whimsical kind of question here, but what would be the one place that you'd fly to tomorrow? I know you've been to a few places, but the one place you'd fly to tomorrow if you had no commitments and infinite resources.
I really liked Barcelona, Spain. When I went there a few years ago, it was just very cool vibe. Everybody was laid back. You got the beach, you got the city, you've got cool real estate. Actually, the architecture is really cool. It's just very, very nice place. I could probably live there. So,
did you run with some bulls on that trip?
Yeah, actually, yeah. We started in Pamplona and ran with the bulls, and then we headed down to Barcelona after that. After barely, escaping with our lives.
Okay, really quick. How was it to run with the bulls?
Well, you know how we talked about having a mentor, right?
Right.
So we found a mentor to teach us how to run with the bulls, and really that made the trip.
Somebody in Spain?
Yeah, it was a guy from America, but he runs every single day with the bulls. So he walked the course with us and told us exactly where to go, what the safe spots are. If you want to actually run alongside the bulls, where the best place is. So we started at the top of the hill where we could actually see the bulls. There's actually some strategy behind this. Uh-huh. So see the bulls coming. I mean, they're way faster than us. Right. You can get a head start, or else they're just going to run you over. So when they're halfway up the hill, I started running. When I get to the top of the hill, it opens up into town square. And if you get stuck by a bull, that's the only place on the whole course where you could stop, drop, and roll under these barricades, and the bulls can't get to you. That's the safest way to run with the bulls for your first time. And even though I was in the safest place, there's a picture of me where I guess I'm the only person not knowing that there's a bull right behind me. But the picture made the front of the newspaper that day. It has me in a New York Yankees hat, looking as American as I can be, with the bull right behind me, and I just got a big ignorant smile on my face. But But let me tell you, because I had that mentor there, I was able to just go to the right, and the bulls just went right past me, or else I probably would have gotten run over or gored. So,
well, there you go. That mentor was well worth it.
yep.
Was that just an amazing adrenaline rush?
It was. I mean, those guys are fast. I mean, I saw the video afterwards, and I mean, those guys are just really fast. I mean, I don't think I would do it again. I'll tell you that much.
You've crossed it off the bucket list.
Right.
Well, very cool. Thanks for sharing that story. We're going to end with where can people reach you? Where can people get your book, Make It, Keep It? Give us a little bit about where people can get in touch with you.
Well, the book's on Amazon, but if they want to text me, I could give them a free copy and mail it to them. If they're subscribers of Doctors Unbound, they could text me at 214-810-4339 and just give me your name and email address, and I'll just confirm where you want me to send it to, and I'll ship it on the way. If not, if you're an Amazon junkie, you just go on Amazon.com and type in Make It, Keep It, and you could download the Kindle version.
Very cool. And they can check out Baluch Bulletin. Where is that? They can just Google Baluch Bulletin, or want to give them some info on that?
Yeah, Baluch, Baluch, then bulletin.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter, and you'll get tons of information every month, stuff that you're not going to learn from books. This really just compilation of some street knowledge from multimillionaires that I put together, and I put into a nice monthly bulletin and send it out there. Every once in a while, if I have some exclusive deals that are off market, if people want to partner with me on some deals, I put those opportunities on there every once in a while.
All right. Well, very cool. Thank you for sharing, just a bit of your knowledge here on real estate. I think it was very educational and interesting for us. I know I certainly learned quite a bit, and we're going to definitely connect in the show notes and link up to all the resources that were mentioned. So Dr. Baluch, once again, thank you for being on Doctors Unbound.
Thanks for having me. Talk to you later.
Thank you for listening to Doctors Unbound podcast. Remember to head over to doctorsunbound.com to access all the show notes and resources discussed in this episode. Now, it's your turn to be unbound.